Hi, I'm Paul Arthur. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. With only days to go in the federal election, the Conservatives promised to end the Liberals' electric vehicle mandate. Some tense moments this morning as police shoot and kill a man at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. After a Game 7 win over Calgary, the Lethbridge Hurricanes advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Medicine Hat Tigers.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News.
Thanks for joining us. On the campaign trail, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was in Halifax today, speaking at a car dealership where he announced that he will end Canada's electric vehicle sales mandate if his party wins the federal election on Monday.
No $20,000 tax on gas-powered cars, no permanent bans in the cars you love and rely on. Let me be clear, I have nothing against electric cars. If you want one, buy one. Free choice. Make your own decision. I encourage you to buy one that's made in Canada, and I go even further to say that a Conservative government would bring real change and axe the federal sales tax on any vehicles made in Canada, so that you can save by buying Canadian. And that will allow us to bring back production and paychecks to Canada while making automobiles more affordable. And there's your choice.
The federal government has mandated 20% of all new vehicles sold must be electric by 2026, rising to 100% by 2035. On a related note, a recent Auto Trader survey shows fewer Canadians are considering buying an electric vehicle. That marks the third year in a row interest has dropped despite lower EV prices. The report surveyed 1,800 people and found 42% of respondents are considering an EV as their next vehicle, which is down from 46% last year. During a stop today in Coquitlam, BC, Liberal leader Mark Carney also addressed auto industry challenges, among other issues.
A few weeks ago, before the U.S. auto tariffs were put in place, we created a $2 billion strategic response fund that will fortify the entire Canadian auto supply chain, from raw materials to finished vehicles. We're investing in the future of the auto industry by building an all-in-Canada network for auto parts manufacturing. And we're developing new markets with reliable partners. We are preparing to build our critical minerals industry. We're developing our leadership in clean energy and clean tech.
Reporters also challenged Carney, asking him about reports that U.S. President Donald Trump once again brought up the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state when the two spoke in late March, despite stating that Trump had respected our sovereignty. Carney didn't directly deny it.
The president brings this up all the time. He brought it up yesterday, he's brought it up before. There's a difference between the conversation that was held between leaders of government, which was this conversation, and a discussion that led directly to an agreement that as sovereign countries we would have negotiations about our partnership following the election on Monday. That's what the President and I agreed. That's what both of us reported back. And that's what I'm ready to do.
Carney is now coming under fire over this from other party leaders for not being forthcoming about what happened on the March 28th call. Carney originally said Trump had treated him cordially and showed respect for Canada's sovereignty. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says if he wasn't upfront about that, Carney may also not be frank with Canadians about the country's position in trade negotiations with the U.S. either. Singh was in Winnipeg today, saying his party will ensure Canadian values and rights will be kept off the table when new trade talks begin with the U.S., including health care, environmental regulations, labor, and treaty rights. Singh also attacked some of the Liberals' spending cuts.
We talked about Mark Carney and his platform and the fact that he has confirmed and committed to $28 billion in cuts, which would be devastating to healthcare, devastating to the services that you need. Just recently, he said, in fact, he was going to exceed that amount, that he was going to exceed those cost cuts. In fact, he said he's going to cut even more, that he was going to cut even more than $28 billion. He was confident that he was going to exceed that. That is going to be devastating. $28 billion was already devastating. He said that he's going to exceed that amount. That means even more cuts to the things that you need. We cannot afford that. We can't let him have all the power. You need New Democrats to fight back and stop those cuts, and that's exactly what we would do in the next budget.
A new poll suggests Americans' trust in President Donald Trump to bolster the U.S. economy appears to be faltering. Amelia Thompson-DeVoe has the story.
Most Americans are bracing for higher prices as a result of President Trump's tariff policies, according to a new AP NORC poll. As we look at the data, it shows there's widespread anxiety and uncertainty about the economy after Trump imposed and then partially suspended hundreds of billions of dollars a year in new import taxes. The poll found that about 7 in 10 Americans think prices will increase because of Trump's tariff policies. And about half are extremely or very concerned that the economy will go into a recession in the next few months. Trump's base is still standing behind him. Republicans are much less concerned about a potential recession than Democrats or independents. But the findings are alarming for a president who was widely perceived by voters last November as the best candidate to handle the economy and specifically the best candidate to tame inflation. And Americans are much less sure about the possible economic benefits. Only about half think Trump's tariff policies will increase jobs and manufacturing, and relatively few of those think Trump's approach will result in a big increase.
Of course, Trump has hit several nations with steep levies, including 145% tariffs on Chinese goods. Canada is also being hit with duties on steel, aluminum, and autos, and there's speculation that those automobile tariffs could increase as well. Meanwhile, President Trump has offered rare criticism of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump urged Putin to, quote, stop in a post on his Truth Social platform today, and let's get the peace deal done.
Mr. President, this morning in a Truth Social post, you used the words Vladimir, stop. That seemed like a slightly different message, a personal message. What is your level of frustration with President Putin?
I didn't like last night. I wasn't happy with it. And we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired. And I was not happy with it. That's what I meant, and that's, you know, what it is. I assume that's what you mean.
Sorry.
Yeah.
If the bombs keep falling, will you consider additional sanctions toward Russia, or what will you do if President Putin...
I'd rather answer that question in a week. I want to see if we can have a deal. No reason to answer it now, but I won't be happy. Let me put it that way. Things will happen.
Mr. President, why are you not putting more pressure on Russia? I know a lot of Europeans...
Putting a lot of pressure. You don't know what pressure I'm putting on Russia. They're dealing. You have no idea what pressure I'm putting on Russia. We're putting a lot of pressure.
Can you maybe tell us that?
We're putting a lot of pressure on Russia, and Russia knows that, and some people that are close to it know, or he wouldn't be talking right now. The Prime Minister understands that better than anybody. He wouldn't be talking right now. He's talking, and we're putting a lot of pressure. I think he wants to make a deal. We're going to find out very soon, but it takes two to tango, and you have to have Ukraine want to make a deal too, and they're being hit very hard, and I do believe they want to make a deal.
Mr. President, what concessions, Mr. President, and to your national security team, what concessions has Russia offered up thus far to get to the point where you're closer to peace?
Stopping the war, stopping taking the whole country. Pretty big concession.
Russia struck Kyiv with an hours-long barrage of missiles and drones overnight, killing at least 9 people and injuring more than 70 others. It's the deadliest assault on the city since last July. There were some tense moments as police shot and killed a 30-year-old man outside Toronto's Pearson Airport this morning. The Special Investigations Unit says a group of 2 or 3 people were in a dispute outside the Terminal 1 departures area when one group member called 911. Officers responded and tried to de-escalate, but the man abruptly pulled a firearm. 3 officers then fired their weapons at him, and the individual later died in hospital. Police say the incident was not an attack on the airport, and there was no threat to public safety. Flights are continuing to operate normally despite the ongoing investigation. Canada's top court will be reviewing the mandatory minimum sentence for purchasing sexual services from someone under age 18. The Supreme Court of Canada constitutionality assessment comes from a case involving police publishing fictitious online escort service ads. An undercover police officer told a man at least 4 times that a female escort was a minor, and he was arrested after turning up to meet the supposed escort. The man was convicted and sentenced to 6 months behind bars, which is the mandatory minimum sentence under the Criminal Code provision. The Quebec Court of Appeal dismissed the man's conviction appeal, but declared the mandatory minimum to be unconstitutional and of no force or effect. A Newfoundland town is looking for answers after it says a statue of Amelia Earhart was taken from a municipal park. The town of Harbour Grace says on social media that the statue was taken at around midnight by at least 2 people. The statue was donated to the town to commemorate the 75th anniversary of Earhart's successful transatlantic flight. The pilot took off from the town on May 20th, 1932, and landed about 15 hours later in Northern Ireland, becoming the first woman to fly non-stop solo across the Atlantic Ocean. In local news, Lethbridge police have charged a 39-year-old male after 2 senior citizens were assaulted in separate incidents that occurred within a half hour of each other. The first incident occurred at around 3 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. Police responded to multiple 911 calls reporting a physical altercation along the 700 block of First Avenue South. Witnesses reported that a young man struck an older male in the head. The subject fled the scene prior to police arrival. EMS transported the 76-year-old victim to Chinook Regional Hospital, where he was treated for a serious head injury. About a half hour later, a 69-year-old man was walking along a path in Indian Battle Park when another man approached him. The victim offered a friendly greeting, but the passerby became irate and began yelling and struck the man on the head. The attacker took off and the victim returned to his home. Thanks to video surveillance, police were able to track down the suspect and arrested him yesterday. 39-year-old Curtis Lorne Babb of Colhurst is charged with 1 count each of aggravated assault. The Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign kicks off this Monday. The annual fundraising initiative supports more than 600 local charities, hospitals, and community groups across Canada. In southern Alberta, the municipalities of Coaldale and Taber have proposed a friendly competition to see who can sell more smile cookies. In Coaldale, 100% of the campaign's proceeds will go directly to family and community support services. Coaldale Mayor Jack Van Ryn explains how many cookies they're hoping to sell and what this represents.
Our goal is to sell 5,000 smile cookies, and I'm looking for support from our residents every time they go through the drive-through or stop by and eat inside of the restaurant, that they order a dozen smile cookies to take home and give out to families and family and friends and co-workers, so that we can raise over $10,000 for FCSS.
FCSS is really excited to be selected for the 2025 Smile Cookie campaign in Coaldale and in Taber. The campaign this year is going to support one of our programs called the Youth Do Crew for ages 14 to 18, and it gives youth and the skills and abilities to help transition from youth into adulthood, and helps them build resumes for jobs, going off to university, and just building a sense of community. And so the funding from the Smile Cookie campaign will help to go to the ideas that youth can dream up within their communities to help make their communities better. This is an exciting opportunity that Tim Hortons across Canada offers communities, and we just want to say a big thanks to Tim Hortons and all the volunteers that help contribute to their communities, as well as the volunteers that help make the Smile Cookie campaign a success on an annual basis.
Last year, Tim Hortons guests helped raise nearly $18.8 million, contributing to the Smile Cookie legacy of over $129 million raised since the campaign launched in 1996. Well, the time for high school graduations is approaching. While we experience moments of joy as we see the young men and young women complete one cycle of life and begin another, there are some, however, who worry about not having dresses or suits for that special occasion. This is where an organization called the Cinderella Project comes in. Recognizing the importance of graduation in a young person's life, this group provides dresses, suits, and more. BCN's Heidi Echevarria has the story.
Welcome to the space. You're Sophia? Yes. Awesome. Welcome to the Cinderella Project.
From April to the end of May, the Cinderella Project welcomes boys and girls who are about to graduate from high school. Thanks to Cinderella Project, not having enough money won't stop them from making their graduation ceremony extra special.
The whole energy, the staff's energy is very welcoming, and it makes me feel comfortable, and I was very happy.
The Cinderella Project was a program that was created to meet a need of students who were graduating in our city but were either unable to or choosing not to attend their grade 12 graduation because of not being able to afford, a suit or a dress for their grad.
Community participation, which donates dresses, suits, ties, shoes, and jewelry in excellent condition, is key to making this possible and free of charge.
So they'll come in for a private appointment, and our team will meet them and get them all set up to get them choosing, a suit or a dress. We also, when we can, we set them up with resources like a hair appointment or a photography session as well, just so that they can really celebrate their special day. We want all of our grads to be able to celebrate alongside their peers for the hard work that they've done to get through this, accomplishment of graduating grade 12.
Very great opportunity, especially for girls that are graduating, and it's just a blessing, and it's amazing. I'm very thankful for this. Most of my friends have bought their dresses for $800 to $500. I'm thankful I got mine for free. I think I tried like 8 or 7. There was so many beautiful dresses, and it was very hard to pick. I got a pair of heels, silver heels, and a bracelet. It's just an amazing organization.
After 9 years, the Cinderella Project has grown to the point of reaching hundreds of students. Today, it has a team of personal shoppers who are part of the 40 volunteers who run the appointments and meet the students. For Bridge City News, I'm Heidi Echevarria.
Isn't that great stuff? Yeah. Well, exciting news for Lethbridge Hurricanes fans as the team is moving on after a 3-1 win over the Calgary Hitmen in Game 7. They will tangle with the Medicine Hat Tigers to play in the WHL Eastern Conference Final. The Canes entered Wednesday's game after tying the series in Game 6 on Saturday with a 5-1 win over the Hitmen. Game 7 shifted back to the Saddle Dome in Calgary, where the Canes were able to sustain their lead after breaking a 1-1 tie late in the first with a goal from Logan Warmold. Despite being outshot throughout the game, the Canes had stellar performances from the penalty kill and goaltender Jackson Unger to win the game and advance to round 3. Lethbridge will travel to Medicine Hat today in preparation for games 1 and 2 against the Tigers on Friday and Saturday before the series turns back to Lethbridge for games 3 and 4 on the 29th and 30th. It was an incredible week for some young athletes from Lethbridge as they were crowned world champion cheerleaders. The Level 1 Under-17 team from Peak Elite Cheerleading was able to capture gold in the All-Star World Championships, which took place in Orlando, Florida last week. Peak Elite's Level 2 team additionally received 4th place out of over 40 teams in the division. Coach Samantha Parody says the win for these athletes, some of whom have been with the team for 10 years, was a culmination of their hard work and dedication.
It's actually unreal and against all odds that a team from Lethbridge with a population of just over 100,000 can pull this level of talent to the international stage, right? This is a 10-year team, and these kids and their talents and their abilities take a decade to develop. So for these kids to have made it all the way to the top and not be able to pull from the possibilities of hundreds of thousands of athletes is unreal. I'm really hoping that bringing a world championship home pushes the sport to the next level within our city. I'm looking forward to spending more time with our prep and our novice teams, competing at a more competitive level as we keep going along, and really just reaching out to the acrobatic community and saying, hey, we're here and we'd love to have you join us.
Well, congratulations to both of those teams. We need to take a short break, but we'll be right back with a full forecast, and it's looking mighty nice. We could see some 20-degree days coming up soon.
Our 7-day forecast has us with a high of 15 for today, with a nice chance of sunny skies. Tomorrow is going to have a high of 18 with sunny skies, alongside Saturday with a high of 22. Sunday's looking to have cloudy skies with a high of 18, but Monday's looking to have partly cloudy skies with a high of 14. Tuesday's going to be cloudy with a high of 18, and finishing off the 7-day with Wednesday, we have a high of 19 with partly cloudy skies. Looking at today's almanac, the average high for this time of year is 15, with the low being 1. The record high was set back on this day in 1910 with a high of 31, and the record low was set back in 1967 with minus 13. The sun rose at 6:22 a.m. today and set at 8:38 p.m. Today's national forecast has Vancouver and Victoria sharing sunny skies, with Vancouver getting a high of 18 and Victoria a high of 21. Edmonton will also get a high of 21 with nice sunny skies, and Calgary will have sunny skies as well with a high of 19. The rest of the prairies will be sunny as well, with Saskatoon getting a high of 20, and both Winnipeg and Regina getting a high of 17. Central Canada is looking to get a little bit of drizzles, with Toronto getting a high of 14 with a chance of thunderstorms, and Ottawa is looking to have a high of 15 with a chance of showers. Montreal is looking to have partly cloudy skies with a high of 14. The East Coast is going to get some rain as well, with Fredericton and Halifax getting highs of 15 and chances of showers, and Charlottetown's going to get a high of 8 with a chance of showers. Finishing off the national forecast with St. John's, we have a high of 5 with partly cloudy skies.
The Canadian Federation of Independent Business estimates the economy grew at an annualized rate of 0.8% in the first 3 months of this year, but it forecasts the economy will contract at an annualized rate of 5.6% in the second quarter. It says the drop comes from a historically low long-term business sentiment in the context of the trade war, as the U.S. has hit Canada with a broad range of levies and Ottawa has responded with counter tariffs. The Hudson's Bay is expected to seek court permission today to auction off some of its most historically significant art and artifacts, including its Royal Charter. Canada's oldest company says this would better ensure the items get the care, consideration, and expertise they need. But archival institutions, governments, and historians are concerned about the pieces becoming a second thought or falling into private hands. It comes as the Hudson's Bay is closing down. UPS has signed a deal to buy Andlauer Healthcare Group in a deal that values the company at about $2.2 billion. The shipping and logistics company will pay $55 per share in cash for AHG's multiple and subordinate voting shares. Once the deal closes, Andlauer is expected to lead UPS Canada Healthcare and AHG. Now here's a look at today's markets.
The TSX was up 254 points on the day to finish at 24,727. The Dow was up 486 points to 40,093. The S&P 500 was up 108 points to 5,484, and the Nasdaq was up 457 to 17,166. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up 52 cents to $62.79 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 8 cents to $2.93 US. Gold was up $33.40 to $3,349.70 US an ounce. Silver was up 5 cents to $33.57 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.90 per bushel. Barley is at $6.90. Canola is at $15.61. And corn is at $8.20 per bushel. Live cattle were up 80 cents to $213.5. Feeder cattle were up 72 cents to $289.07 for the May contract. And lean hogs May contract was up 7 cents to $91.95. And the Canadian dollar was even over the past 24 hours and currently sits at 72 cents US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was campaigning in Halifax today, where he announced that he will end Canada's electric vehicle sales mandate if his party wins the federal election on Monday. Mark Carney campaigned on the West Coast while Jagmeet Singh was in Winnipeg. After the break, we'll hear from Brian Rushfeld. I had a chance to sit down with the former head of Canada Family Action to chat about the upcoming election. When you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews. Federal election 2025 is closing in on us soon, and at this point, the Liberals continue to lead in the polls. Joining us from Calgary to chat about the election is Brian Rushfeld, former president of Canada Family Action. He spent many years lobbying members of Parliament for common sense family values. So good to have you with us, Brian.
Be with you, and especially at a critical time that we're in Canada.
Yeah, this is a big thing. This election has a lot of implications, depending on which way it goes. So, I was going to start with this, Brian. Political parties often use fear to attract votes, right? I mean, that's pretty common. A very interesting post-media Leger poll was released showing that 6 in 10 Liberal voters say they were motivated primarily by a fear of what the future holds for Canada. Now, this compared to 75% of Conservative voters who say their motivation was primarily a hope for a better future in Canada to live, work, and raise a family. So you've basically got fear on the one side and hope on the other side. Just an interesting dynamic. Yeah.
Well, I think part of that would come down from the perspective of those two parties, and part of it from the perspective of what we've seen over the last 9 years of government is things falling apart, and that probably promotes fear amongst the Liberals. On the other hand, I think the Conservatives have seen that, but they're also saying there's a better way. We can do better than that. We are a great nation. We can do better. So I can see why they have hope that, hey, we've got a future if we handle it right.
Yeah, I mean, fear versus hope. I think a lot of the fear comes, of course, from the uncertainty with the, tariff threats and so forth. Uncertainty always tends to bring some anxiety and fear, right? So, maybe if that settles out some, who knows, maybe things will switch a bit. I'm not sure, but I mean, we all need some hope here for sure, right? I mean, Canada needs that. We need to stop beating ourselves up. Say, we're as Canadians, we're just bad people. No, we're not. We're good people. We have a rich history, and we have a good future. So,
we've got a rich history, and we've got a rich country. There's so many things about our country that make us a great country if we use it right.
Yeah, well, we have a huge natural resources sector, and that's, of course, one of the issues we need to talk about here, the carbon tax issue. We know that Carney, of course, cut back the consumer carbon tax that the Liberals themselves, mind you, championed for years. And he says he does plan to keep the industrial tax in place, though, saying, well, the heavy emitters are going to be doing the paying, all right, and you and I, the consumers, are going to be off the hook here. Well, another poll, the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, it's another Leger poll, but showing 70%, wow, I thought, you got to be kidding, 70% of Canadians believe businesses pass on most or some of the cost of the industrial carbon tax to consumers, to us, but only 9% believe that businesses pay most of the cost, so 21% undecided. Now this could potentially, I guess it could potentially backfire on the Liberals?
I think it can. I think people will come to realize, and the simple example is if I'm running a business and the government taxes me an extra 10% for whatever purpose, as a business, I have to recoup that. So who am I going to recoup it from? I'm going to recoup it from you because the price is going to go up. It's simple economics, simple business practice. And I think Canadians are waking up to that slowly. But of course, the Liberal spin has been, oh, well, we'll just put it on those top level people and they will be the ones that pay. Not going to happen.
Well, I mean, you think about it, I guess, even, if natural gas is used to produce electricity, there'll be a charge to those providers, right, from the government, you know, fertilizers or our farmers, if they have to pay more, you know, then your groceries go up, right? Your electricity bill goes up, you know, whatever it is. I mean, so yeah, it does, I think, trickle down for sure. Yeah, pipelines, of course, tied in with this. And again, very interesting to see that public opinion has changed on this. A sizable majority of Canadians saying we do need a coast-to-coast pipeline. So Carney just coming out saying pipelines are not necessarily among major projects to prioritize. He's saying maybe. So no commitment to that. Now, Poilievre, on the flip side, is committed to build pipelines. You know, yet obviously this, at this point, when you look at the polls, this seems to be working for Carney. So, yeah, I mean, you know, maybe he's just going to keep doing what he's doing then. Your thoughts there?
Well, I think Carney's catering somewhat to Quebec, because Quebec said they're never going to allow a pipeline to run through their province. It's easy to go around their province in that southern area, but that's another point. But I think Canadians overall are starting to see that this whole green energy thing has been a scam. It's not working. It's an honorable thing to look to, but we still need oil. We still need gas, and the only way we're going to have that and have it functioning properly is with pipelines. And of course, we've got a great product to export. And we can't export it by hauling it on trains and trucks. So I think people will hopefully wake up in the next 2 weeks to the fact that pipelines are not super dangerous, but they are necessary for a good economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you know, will the economy come to the top in this election as being the primary issue or not? I guess we'll find out. Crime and public safety certainly being brought up lately by the Conservatives in particular, but I think all the parties have now responded to that. It's a concern, of course, for many Canadians, in particularly in the larger centres like Toronto and Vancouver and so forth. People tired of the catch and release system, I think. I mean, I don't care what political stripe you're from, when you look and you see that, you go, yeah, you know, the guy should have been in jail, and, you know, somebody's suffering as a result now. So Pierre Poilievre taking some heat for his proposal to pass a law to allow judges to impose consecutive life sentences in cases of multiple you know, mass murderers, right, essentially. His quote, I think, is something like, you know, jailed mass murderers should only come out in a box, right? So, I mean, so some people are going to, you know, react negatively to that, but I think a lot of people going, yeah, I understand the sentiment there, right? So he's also saying he would use the notwithstanding clause to make it happen, and that's, of course, getting a lot of hackles up, you know, rightly or wrongly. Yeah, what do you think of that?
Well, I think we're at a point where we have to take action. We've been depending on the courts, or judges, if you will, to make reasonable decisions, and they're not. They're simply not making them. If we need a law, which is passed by Canadian Parliament, not judges, if the law says this is what you have to do, then the judges are going to have to follow that. And I think we're at a point, unfortunately, we can't depend on the courts and the judges anymore, because they do. They catch, they release criminals back out on the street the next day committing crime. For all of our sake, that has to be handled. And if it needs the notwithstanding clause to do it and overriding judges, let's do it, because Canadian safety is number one.
Yeah, when it comes down to when you look at your family, if they're being threatened, you know what, we want to step in and do something about it, right? We get tired of nothing changing. Now, he's also proposing a 3-strike law, so any, you know, 3 serious convictions, I guess, there'd be a minimum 10-year minimum sentence, I think, right? That's got to be at least 10 years and possibly even higher, but, and again, you know, some pushback against that as well, saying, well, you know, it's got to be each judge, you know, free to assess it on a case-by-case basis. So I get that in one sense. On the other hand, you know, I think people get tired of so many judges seeming to side with the victim rather, with the perpetrator rather than with the victim.
Well, and we saw this 15 years ago. I worked with the with the Conservative government and Prime Minister Harper to get a mandatory minimum sentence for child sex offenders. We saw sex offenders, sometimes 10 victims. One guy in Eastern Canada, 200 victims, 200 children that he'd abused. We finally got a 1-year mandatory, which is a pathetic mandatory, but at least we got 1 year. The Liberals came in and they killed the mandatory sentences. They said that takes away the ability of judges to decide on cases. Well, the judges don't make the law. We as citizens elect people to make the law, and the judges are required by my standard to obey those laws. So if we need to put some strict laws in place, let's do it.
Okay, I tend to lean that way as well. And I do understand the idea of a case-by-case thing. There are, things, some unique cases for sure. But again, there's just been such a trend toward, judges making decisions. I think that the majority of Canadians would scratch their heads and say, is that really just?
Yes, they're
right?
asking questions. Yes,
Yeah.
Finally asking questions.
Yeah, for sure. Government accountability, always an issue in any election. Mark Carney, under all kinds of pressure to reveal his assets to Canadians, hasn't done so yet, which is, to me, actually kind of curious. Of course, it raises some red flags, and we wonder, well, why haven't you revealed that? I mean, that's the bottom line there, I think, for many people is, okay, what's up with this, right? One of Poilievre's recent announcements is to tighten financial transparency rules for elected officials, so accountability. And on the other hand, he's also getting criticized for not actually going far enough with those proposed legislation, for accountability. How accountable do we need to be?
Well, I think the accountability for me, having watched for a number of years what's going on, doesn't just relate back to where did Carney make his money, who's he involved with. We have seen so many violations, violations of ethics, which is a violation of the law. We saw Trudeau probably, I think, face about 5 or 6 ethics violations, and very little accountability. In fact, some of those things, nothing was done, absolutely nothing. And so to me, it goes way beyond what the MP or the Prime Minister is doing in his own, with his own money in his own company. It goes to the fact, let's have transparency and let's take some action when violations of ethics, as they call it in government, happen. And so clearly we need, our system is broken in that area and it needs fixed.
Yeah, there needs to be some consequences. People get tired of seeing politicians getting away with stuff that no one else would get away with, right? So, all right, one law for me, one for thee, right? Now, before calling the election, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had proposed some changes to the Income Tax Act to, I think it was an all-parties finance committee, but all the parties, well, I think except for the Conservatives on this one, but to remove charitable tax status from pro-life pregnancy crisis centers as well as religious charities. So it which would include churches of any faith background. Question is, so will Mark Carney's Liberals follow through on that? At this point, I don't think he's said one way or the other, but that is a concern, of course, for many of us in the faith community.
Well, that whole area has been talked about probably for 15 years now. There's been suggestions, takes the tax status away some churches, they should be paying land tax, etc. Now we've expanded that a little bit to whether I make a donation, whether I can deduct that or not. I think it will happen if the Liberals are elected. The Liberals are looking for every possible way to collect money from us, to suck more dollars in their taxes. So whatever way that they can apply a tax, they're going to apply a tax. Of course, I always ask some of the debaters on this, why do we always have to look for new money to tax people? If we're not meeting our budget, then like I do in my household, I don't go out and get another loan. I reduce my expenditure. We're $1 trillion in debt in this country now because Trudeau and his government for 9 years have funneled money out of here to every crook in the world. And they don't want to reduce the spending. They want to suck more out of us as taxpayers. So I think the Liberals will do whatever they can to try and justify another tax.
Okay. You didn't hold back on that one.
No.
Well, what would you say to Christians watching who may be hesitant to even get involved in this election? It happens every year, it seems. Whenever there's an election, there's a certain percentage of Christians who just don't bother to go and vote. And I get it. You know, as Christians, we do believe that you know, God is the one who brings about change, not government. But it's part of that. It's part of the process, I think. So let's use every opportunity to make a difference?
Well, I think people that have argued that God makes changes, but how does God work? He works through his people.
Yes.
And I've argued for a long time, since Canada Family Action days, that people, Christians, need to be engaged in the political world, not because it's politics, but because we have to care and look after the rest of people in Canada. That's part of us, our call as a Christian. Be involved, engaged to make society the best it can be. And by doing that, sometimes it requires us to go to a poll and make a decision about who we want to elect. Can you imagine if we had 300 honest, godly men and women in Parliament tomorrow? What the Parliament would actually do with a lot of these issues that are causing stress and pain and heartache for Canadians. So yes, I say go and vote. Vote however you wish, but look at who you're voting for. Are they godly men and women? Are they honest? Do they have integrity? If they do, vote for them. Go for it.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. Do you have any fearless predictions, Brian, as to the outcome of this election? Who will win? By what margin? What do you think?
Well, I'm going to speak from a hopeful place. I think we're going to see the Conservatives with a majority. Maybe 10 to 20 seats majority, because I think people are waking up. There's a shift. See, the polls, I've argued for a long time that the polls are never all that accurate, because they poll 1,500 people. Out of those 1,500 people, how many of those people actually vote or even know what politics is? So you're not getting a proper representation. If you were to go to all the voting people to ask, I think the polls would come out differently. And I believe we're going to see majority of Conservatives across Canada. Not a big majority, but we need a majority.
Well, I encourage our viewers to pray for good results to come out of all of this here. All right.
Yeah, pray and vote.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotcha. Hey, thanks for being with us today, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
The 2025 federal election is quickly approaching. In fact, it's just days away. And today we have the opportunity to discuss the issues with Tom Rooke, who's the Liberal candidate for the Medicine Hat, Cardston-Warner riding. Tom, welcome to Bridge City News.
Well, thank you very much. Really a pleasure to be here and talk to your audience, because as our territory, our riding, shall we call it, is so large that it's hard to get a hold of media that is going to take us to that area, and Bridge City News provides a good coverage of the riding. So I'm very pleased that I'm able to do this with you.
Well, thank you for saying that. Now, let's get to know you a little bit more. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and why you decided to enter into the federal election fray.
Well, that's an interesting question, and I think I'm prepared to answer that in the fact that I'm not a lifelong politician by any stretch of the imagination. I did sit on the local school board here for a while, and that I don't consider to be political. That was just something that I felt I needed to do. But I also have a little bug in my ear about a variety of different topics. So I write letters to the editor of the local newspaper here, the Medicine Hat News. And at this particular point in our country's election coming up, I decided that enough with the words, let's have some action. So I went to the local party and said, have you got a candidate? And they said, well, we're just putting together a little group of people to see if we can get a candidate. And I said, throw my name into the hat, and long story short, yes, I ended up to be the candidate. That was about a month ago, so it's been a real uphill battle in a short time frame, shall we say. But we're doing very well. We've got a really good volunteer group that's working for us, and they've been doing a marvelous job in covering the city here in Medicine Hat. And we hope to get out to the countryside tomorrow and do a little campaigning out there as well.
And you said that there were some issues burning in your heart, and so we're going to talk about that a bit later in this interview. But much of this election has been focused on how to stand up to the U.S. and the tariffs. So what do you see as the best approach to deal with this?
Well, I think our leader, Mark Carney, has already done a lot to deal with the tariff problem. Mr. Trump and his cronies down there have really set the world economy on its butt, shall we call it? Pardon my French. But what has happened with the tariffs right away, as Prime Minister Mark Carney got together with the premiers and people from the territories and sat down and they ironed out a plan like almost immediately. And what has happened with that plan is that they have become united. Canada has become united like it's never been united before. And that is the kind of thing that Canadians want. They want somebody to stand up to Donald Trump. And so far, the rest of Canada has stood up to Donald Trump under the leadership of Mark Carney. Just today's headline in the Medicine Hat News said that right now, the tariffs that have been imposed by the U.S. will remain even because one of the concerns was that there was not enough border protection. Well, that border protection has been increased, so much so that the United States is now saying, we're not going to increase your tariffs. The tariffs are still there, but we're not going to increase the tariffs. And I think that is another indication of the Mark Carney leadership that we need for this country, and that is the fact that he will stand up to Donald Trump, and he will do what is necessary for Canada's sake to protect our sovereignty and things like that. And you notice that the U.S. is not calling us the 51st state and not calling our prime minister the governor anymore. That shows me strong leadership to have that done.
Now, the Liberal Party has now released its costed platform, which includes a lot of government programs. There's a lot of spending, but there's also a large deficit. Is this spending needed, and is it worth going deeper into debt?
I don't know whether we're going to go deeper into debt on that particular thing, because one of the plans in that is to investigate all the different aspects of things, not to put, as an example, put a cap on employment, not to cut employment, but to put a cap on that. And of course, through that, you'll end up saving money, in a sense, by attrition. And that's the kind of thing that Mark Carney is good at.
You're saying like a cap on like government employment? Is that what you mean?
That's correct, yes. Yeah, no, not my employment, thank you.
I want to get clarification on that.
I appreciate that, yes. Yes, that is just one aspect of the whole plan. Also to investigate any outside, what will you call them, consultants, shall we say. There's a lot of that kind of thing going on that Mr. Carney has said we're looking into that so that we can make sure that we don't necessarily need to use that many consultants. So there's a variety of different things that the plan to help reduce deficit. And I think he has said something to the effect that by 2028, these things will come to pass and the deficit will be reduced.
Now, something we hear in southern Alberta and really across Canada is people lamenting over the lack of affordable housing, and many find it difficult to even pay rent. What's your party's plan to make these costs more affordable for southern Albertans?
Well, again, the plan, and it has been, as you said before, it has been indicated, costed out on a platform basis, but one of the first things that the Liberal Party under Carney has said is to address that issue wholeheartedly in building new homes. One of the things that he has emphasized so strongly is that Canada is strong, and we will be able to look to, I'm trying to find the words here, look to build. I think he used the example of after the Second World War, back in 46, 47, etc., we, under a Liberal government at the time, by the way, managed to put together all the houses that were necessary for the returning soldiers and people coming after the war. Big baby boom. I was almost one of them. I was born during the actual war, but as you know, the baby boom went from 46 or 47 all the way up to 62, somewhere in that area. That required a lot of housing, and that was achieved. And I think what Mr. Carney is looking at is something similar to that. So building Canada strong, not just the economy, but also using the various resources that we have, such as Canadian lumber, such as other types of things that you need to build those kind of ideals. Yes, it is a problem, and he has recognized that as a problem, and he has put together a plan to build those houses in different things. Just recently, as an example, in the city of Calgary, we have them using a lot of the office space, which was overbuilt in terms of office space down there, and they have converted them to housing. So that's the kind of thing that we're looking at, not necessarily, well, mind you, for this area, it would be something along that line. If there's vacant space here, say in Medicine Hat or down in Bow Island or wherever, those are the kind of things that people can relate to and convert it to, and they just want a roof over their head, and it's something that is very much on people's mind to do that.
Now, when it comes to either building houses or repurposing existing properties, how would this building plan be funded, and where would the money come from?
By creating a stronger economy. And by doing that, we look at other areas. Right now, we are very reliant on the United States, and we have already looked to reach out to other countries, the UK, France, Germany, Japan, Australia, those kind of places, creating unions with them for trading purposes. And it all works out, which will then strengthen our economy and be less reliant on the United States.
Now, on the environmental front, many Southern Albertans are still feeling the economic impact of the carbon tax. Now, Mark Carney did reduce the carbon tax down to zero, but of course the carbon tax itself was put in place by the Liberal government itself. Can you explain why the Prime Minister believes that the costs of the industrial carbon tax won't get passed down to consumers?
I trust Mark Carney, and I think it will not get passed down to consumers. But he is going after the large corporations, shall we call them, that are emitting that kind of thing. And by the way, that ties in with agreements with the European Union, who is saying if you want to trade with us, then we're either going to put a tax on you if you're not meeting your standards in terms of carbon removal, or you can join us. So that's why we've looked at exactly that to put not a tax, whatever, going after the large emitters to make sure that we're achieving the targets that have been set, so that we can also then say to the European Union, yes, we've got that in there. One way or the other, they're going to charge us, but they would charge us more, and basically they're saying, if you don't do this, we don't need to trade with you, kind of idea. So that's exactly where we're going with that particular thing. So with that in mind, I do not see that Mr. Carney or the Liberal Party, the Liberal government, will be adding the tax, or pardon me, the carbon tax back to the consumer.
Now let's talk more about your riding, because your riding is rich in natural gas resources, which create employment, and a majority of Albertans and Canadians want to see a coast-to-coast pipeline built. Now, we're hearing Mark Carney say, quote, "I'm going to make Canada the world's leading energy superpower." But on the other hand, he told a Quebec audience, we have to choose a few projects, a few big projects, not necessarily pipelines, but maybe pipelines, we'll see. Can you explain this to the local voters?
Oh, right. What Mark Carney has done is got together, as I said, with the premiers and other people. I'm not sure what their title is up in Northwest Territories or whatever, but anyway, those people had said, look, we're hurting ourselves with all these interprovincial trade barriers, etc. So they're working together to get those changed and reduced, if not eliminated. And then when you have a problem such as the pipeline going through Quebec and into the Maritimes, that's the kind of thing that he's speaking when he's speaking to a Quebec audience. He's not going to say, we're going to force you to do this. He's going to negotiate. And once the negotiations are done, then he's going to be able to say, hey, we've got a pipeline that we can go from coast to coast to coast. Because he's also looking to the north to do that as well. And we already have, of course, the Trans Mountain pipeline that has been completed, and the oil is flowing out there.
Now, we're almost out of time, so any final thoughts on why you believe a Liberal federal government is best for our nation?
I would suggest that one of the reasons why folks that are listening or watching this, pardon me, would vote Liberal is because there are no more progressive Conservatives anymore. There's a lot of people who've been voting Conservatives thinking that they're getting the same government that they got under John Diefenbaker or Brian Mulroney or that. But once the government came in under Stephen Harper, as an example, it is really a reformed extreme right government, and it's become even more extreme, and I'm kind of concerned about that for the sovereignty of Canada. I don't see us joining the states in any way, shape, or form. And I would just like people to think, just for once, that you might want a representative that is on the government. All polls right now indicate that the Liberals are going to form the next government. And wouldn't it be nice out there if you had somebody representing you in your concerns? Because there are some legitimate concerns only to southeastern Alberta. And I would like to be that person that takes your concerns to the government of Canada rather than sit on the backbench and make silly noises.
Tom Rook is the Liberal candidate for the Medicine Hat Cardston Warner riding. Tom, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you. Really appreciate that, giving us the time.
I'm Naveen Day on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.